So I'm Charlotte Gauthier. I am lead UX designer at The Guardian, currently working on our membership proposition. I have a background in product management and web analytics for both startups and some other major publishers like the New York Times and Newsweek.
How do you define UX?
So there are two different ways that you can define UX. So the first is if you're defining user experience, it is basically what the user sees, how they interact, how they feel when they come to your site or to your app. If you define user experience design, I would say that that is the process of applying user-centered design principles to architect an experience that allows the user to accomplish the goal that they have in the easiest and most pleasant way that they can.
Why is UX and service design such a buzzword in the industry?
So I think it's a buzzword because people know that they need to have an experience or a service that makes them stand out from their competition, but they don't quite know what they need to achieve that. So they will hire someone who says that they have an expertise in UX design or someone that has an expertise in service design with a mandate to make the experience or the product better. I think the good service designer or the wise service designer or UX'r understands really well what the mandate is if it exists before they take a job. So I would say that most companies, before they hire someone on full-time, should employ the services of a really senior UX'r or service designer. There are a lot of people go around and just do consultancy. So they will do a full review of your website or of your service, and you can not only get the review out of them, but you can understand what the process would be to ameliorate those problems or to design the service and figure out what skills and capabilities you need to fulfill that.
What is the correct job title for a UX practitioner?
So the correct title is something of a debate in the industry. Research is easy enough. UX researcher is a perfectly good title. You can say user researcher if you want to be, I don't know, a little bit more pedantic. But with UX, I hate to call it design because that gives away the title. It's a little bit more difficult. So there are UXers who will focus a little bit more on maybe the old school type of skill sets. So ergonomics or interaction design. Those people used to be called UX architects. It's not a common title now, but I think it's probably the best for someone who does that real heavy lifting. Then move into UX design, which is where you get people who do wireframes and interaction design, things like that. If you want those type of people, then you want a UX designer. If you want someone who can partner with the business, partner with product managers, understand your kind of internal needs and how to sell UX, then you're probably looking for a UX strategist or a service designer that specializes in kind of internal projects.
Where do you see the future of user experience?
So I think we have reached peak web and app. Most things now, I don't want to say all things because that would be limiting myself, but most interactions in web and apps can be boiled down to a few really, really well understood dynamics and patterns. The future of the industry is really in emerging technologies. VR, AR, chatbots, voice systems. How users interact with those technologies is not very well understood, and those are some of the most interesting problems that you can tackle today as a UX'r. Right now we are on the very leading edge of the adoption of these technologies. So larger organizations like The Guardian are going into VR in a big way. So we'll be making 12 VR experiences over the next year. So our teams are really working quite hard on that. The same thing with chatbots, although not so much yet AR, for example. There is a kind of bleeding edge where the Guardian is, and other industries, I think, will follow once the business case has been proven out. That is really where the industry or the technology has yet to prove its merit. But, in 5 years or so, once there's actually a business case, things like banks or whatever will follow. Just like, banks made a big push into mobile apps a couple of years ago.
How do you actually become a UX designer?
So there are as many ways to become a UX'r as there are to become, anything else. The way that I got into it was via product management. So I was a product manager in early stage startups, which meant that if there was any UX design to be done, I had to be the one to do it, or I would have to put out a bad product, which I was not about to do. So I studied in my spare time everything I could. I read every book and blog and anything imaginable. That is the hard way to become a UX designer. And if you have a lot of gumption and an interest in design, maybe I would recommend that. If you are converting from a different field of design, you might have a little bit of an easier time because you will already have a portfolio and stuff like that. So I would say if you're working as a designer, start trying to branch out into that work. You can always get some kind of freelance work as a researcher or a designer. There are always people looking to hire for 2 weeks or whatever. It's great stuff to put in your portfolio. If you're a student, the problem is that most digital media design programs, like the master's degree that I'm doing now, don't really prepare anyone for UX or UI design in a very good way. So you will have to do work on the side or create your own websites or your own apps just to have something in your portfolio that is not student work. There are some companies that will only hire people with a degree in UX. I think that is kind of misguided and a little bit short-sighted. The companies that usually do that, in my experience, want to hire someone with a degree because they don't feel that they know how to vet UXers or service designers properly. I would stay far away from those people, even if you do have a degree. If you don't have a degree but you have a good portfolio and you have some obvious passion for the role, then there are people who will take a chance on you. So my advice to those people is don't give up. Continue attending industry events, continue writing, continue doing whatever you can on the side, and eventually it will happen for you. It is really important if you can find a good mentor who will work with you, who will critique your stuff, who will introduce you to other high-quality people who are hiring. Those mentors are invaluable and are worth their weight in gold. The way that you get a mentor like that is being passionate, certainly, but also being proactive, making sure that you get what you need, that your questions are well structured, and that you provide feedback to your mentor, just like your mentor is providing feedback to you. With unpaid internships, I think the jury is still out on that. I would say that most companies, just like most people, don't really value anything that they're getting for free. So if you are going to be an intern, make sure that you are not a wireframe monkey. One thing that I would add is the importance of giving something back to the industry. So there are a lot of people that create content, they'll write a blog on Medium or they will repost stuff on Twitter, and that's great. That's a really good way to get yourself out there and to get yourself known. The worst people who do this where it's an obvious sell of their services. don't do that. Write something interesting about what you have actually found that is useful to other people. They will begin seeing you as a thought leader or someone that they want to work with, and that will attract to you the best kind of people.
Yes.
So the Guardian is looking for a few different UX'ers to come in and work with us. The first thing that we're looking for is a lead user researcher, someone who can mentor the great researchers that we have now, bring in new and interesting practices to the Guardian, and help shape the way that we do research here. The second profile that we're looking for is kind of mid-level UX designer or researcher, someone who's a bit of an all-arounder, maybe slightly more focused on research. And we're also looking for the opposite profile, someone who's a mid-level, can do a bit of design and a bit of research, but is more focused on design. If you are interested, you can check on the Guardian Jobs website and submit an application.